We are now recording. Alrighty, let me get my presentation up here. Well, let's try this again. I don't know if that worked. Nope. You may have all received a file that you didn't need to receive. Don't worry about that. Let's see here. For some reason, I'm not able to get the PowerPoint up. I apologize for this. I'm just gonna mess around a little bit here, see if I can get this to work. There it is. Just didn't feel, talk about participation points. My PowerPoint didn't feel like participating. There it is. All righty. Okie dokie. So there should be a PowerPoint up now. I'm going to go ahead and make sure we are all in the room. I am still admitting folks as I'm going here, so please attribute any strange pauses to that. And if you get kicked out of the room, please just come right back in. Alrighty, and give some folks just a second to get settled here before we begin. Alrighty. Okie dokie. Looks like we are just about ready to get going with today's event. I'll go ahead and introduce myself yet again, just in case you just came into the room. My name is Anne Grybowski. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I worked in financial aid for 9 years, and before that, I worked in development, so growing scholarship funds and alumni relations. So I've worked in higher ed for over 10 years, and I spend a lot of that time going into schools, going into community offices, parks, playgrounds, anywhere anybody wanted to have a meeting to learn about financial aid. So I'm going to impart some of that information to you today and really highlight what worked for me, what did not work. So, you know, helping you learn through my mistakes. Hopefully you don't make some of the same mistakes. And seeing what folks today really want to know. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, for those of you who just signed in, I do like to be interrupted with questions, so you can unmute yourself, you can turn your camera on, or you can type in the chat. That works just great. And that will get everybody talking. So I use the same picture every single time I present. I decided to switch it up today. This is me and my cat, Nora, who's thinking about her future and her college dreams. I am somebody who, of course, went to school a few years ago, and can admit that my experience is not the experience of students today, nor is the experience of my parents necessarily the experience of parents and guardians today. So we'll talk about some changes and some ways that we can address what students need right now. All right, letting a few people into the room. And again, please feel free to say hi to everybody in the chat, make some connections, make some friends. Sounds good. All right, what are we going to go over today? What exactly are we covering? We'll talk about how we make contact, how we can reach out to a group, to a school, to an organization, and let them know that we have services available to present. You may have a lot of aid knowledge that you want to impart. You just need a stage on which to stand, to share. So we'll talk about how we can find our stage. Once we have our stage, we need some people people in the audience to watch what we are imparting. So we'll talk about knowing your audience. That's one of my big things in all areas of my professional life. The key to success is knowing your audience and being able to cater to your audience. So if you have, if you were only able to sign into today's event for 5 minutes, the answer to the what works part of what works and what doesn't is knowing your audience. So there's the information. See ya. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. But that really is so super important. Every bit of success comes from whether or not your audience has left with the information you want them to leave with. So if someone shows up and has a great time, but then doesn't remember what website to go to, what document to submit, anything like that, you might not have been as effective as you could be. So we'll talk about knowing your audience and the questions they want to know the answer to. We'll talk about deciphering goals. My goals, your boss's goals, your audience's goals, the person who hired you, your contact, what their goals are for your presentation and having you give information to their group. And we'll talk about specifics of what works and what doesn't, and we'll highlight mistakes that I myself have made, me right here, and we'll learn about how to try to avoid some of those in the future. All righty. So this is really what we want to be doing in a nutshell. If you are a process-driven person, and I can be, this is really your 3-step process. This doesn't necessarily tell you how to build your event, but it tells you how to get started and how to take this sort of nebulous cloud of information that you have and tailor it down and get it out to your people. So the first thing I advise, if you are able and if you are willing to do this, is to cold contact schools, community organizations, people in your bubble that you know may want to hear your message. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that part of my history is in development. I worked as both a caller and a trainer for this thing called Lion Line, which is part of Penn State's Office of Development. And what they do is they request funds from alumni for scholarships, for class gifts, for this, that, and the other. So if you're a Penn State alumni and you've ever gotten a phone call in the evening asking for money, that was me or somebody I know. But that is an example of a great job a student can have in college, and B, really what we want to be doing in the realm of student aid. We want to be calling people to say, hey, we have this great thing going on that you could benefit from. You might not know that. And here's what we have to offer. When I say cold calling, that could mean cold calling on the phone, traditional style. I do that quite a bit because that's my area of preference. If you can get somebody on the phone, sometimes it's hard for them to get away and you can get your message across. But if that's not working, you can do a cold email, a cold text, if that's the kind of relationship you have with a school or group organization. What I typically do, let's say, for an example, I want to do a high school night or a high school day aimed at students who are soon to be in college. So they're not there quite yet, but they're almost there. What I might do, and what I have done quite a few times, is find the school closest to me, or a list of high schools closest to me, find the office for their, or I'm sorry, the number for their guidance office. Sometimes this is called something else, a leadership office, can be under a host of headings, but something that would be the traditional guidance office, guidance counselors maybe, and have a phone call. Ask them, what are your students asking you? Do you have a lot of people asking you, I don't know how to fill out a FAFSA, can someone come help me? Or do you have people saying, all right, my FAFSA's been done, did that, easy peasy, I want to know about scholarship application. How do I do that? And in the cold call, you can find out really what your audience wants and who your audience is. So you're gathering info, you've touched base, you've made a contact with either the guidance office or, let's say, a community manager. An example of a community manager would be if you are presenting to a group of students who are in a A foster care program, sometimes they have an assigned activity leader, something like that. And I've worked through I forget what county this is in, but Lock Haven area, I've worked with their foster youth groups before by reaching out to their community managers. So just different ways to get your foot in the door. But once you're talking to the guidance office, the community manager, you want to be asking really 3 questions to find out what they need. The first is, do your students really want to be filling out the FAFSA? Are most of them doing the free application for federal student aid? Are more of them doing the CSS profile, which is College Board's application? Or is it a mix? Do we have students who are doing both? They want to know how to do both, get them both out. In addition to that, you want to find out, does your audience prefer to have an event in the daytime? So maybe during school hours, during a study hall or after school activity? Or would this be better suited for something in the later evening after practice is over, rehearsal is over, dinner time is over, folks can come back to the school and learn or log on to Zoom and learn? I like to be flexible and say I can do either. Many times I end up doing both. So folks will say, oh, you know what, could you do a daytime event for the students and then later on log into Zoom for the parents? Sure, why not? If it's all in one day, we can easily work that out. And it also allows us to tailor to 2 separate audiences. So do we want day or evening? And do we want a virtual event or an in-person event? So either by a show of hands or in the chat, anybody experienced some Zoom fatigue recently or have students complaining of Zoom fatigue? Tell me a little bit about that. Or conversely, do you have people who are like, no, can we go back to all virtual, please? How do we feel about Zoom or other virtual platforms? There is a reason I'm asking this question. Let's see, I can see people typing and thinking. Okay, yes, or they don't show up to the meeting. All right. More students are asking to return to Zoom, enjoying hybrid. All right, yes. Shout out for the hybrid. As somebody who doesn't like doing the same thing day to day, I love me some hybrid. For families, sometimes Zoom is easier. Yes, very good. Hybrid works best. Zoom has better results. Okay. Okay, thank you, Robert. Robert's saying virtual is not quite real. That's a good point. Sometimes you miss, just as an example, and I will say I prefer Zoom, but one thing I don't like about Zoom is you don't notice that student in the back who has their head down and they're not quite paying attention and they're avoiding their eye contact. And you can kind of sense, okay, I'm not meeting them where they are. How can I adjust? It's harder to do on Zoom. But the reason I asked is you can see we have a pretty diverse a set of opinions on this. Some folks are like, woohoo, Zoom all the way, give me my Zoom back. I love Zoom. Some people are, and again, I'm using Zoom as the example for the virtual format because that's what I'm currently using, but virtual spaces versus in-person spaces. A lot of people are concerned with more in-person spaces and, do we have to worry about health concerns? Let me see here. Both options are great and should be offered. Oops, no, come back. There we go. Is another good thing to highlight. And the reason I highlight this is because one is not better than the other. I like virtual a lot better. That does not mean virtual is better. Somebody pointed out, Zoom, maybe people can take that or the message is heard better. The mission is more successful. I found that to be true in some cases, but in some cases, the polar opposite is true. In person is what we have to do. An example being one high school that I would present to almost every year, I think I was there for about 8 or 9 years in a row, is in a somewhat rural part of Pennsylvania. So though the school itself is very well serviced, great connectivity, has all these things available to the students, the majority of the population are situated in areas where they don't have reliable internet. They might not have internet at all. Populations who were really struggling when everything went virtual in the first place, and now this is one more virtual thing that they're having trouble attending. So it's important to ask, and it's important to offer both. What I like to do is see if I can do one of each. I kind of gave that as my example earlier. Hey, maybe I come in and I talk to your students in person, and then I go home, hop on Zoom in the evening, and parents can come and ask me questions so they don't have to worry about driving here after work or getting a babysitter for somebody or something like that. If you can do both, if you can offer a hybrid option where you're presenting and it's being streamed, and that kind of knocks out those two concerns, great. Do both if you can, but be sure you ask. Don't make the assumption. So once we've decided, what topics we want to really focus on, if we want to do a day, evening, or both, if we want to do virtual, in person, or both, then we actually have to build the event. One thing you want to be cognizant of is not trying to shove too much aid information in the time you have. I am hyper guilty of this. One note I receive frequently is, hey, Anne, you have a bit too much on your slides. That's fair. That's fair because, from my point of view, I want to give you all the information I have. I want to make sure that you leave as total experts, but I might be overloading you. So I've learned to tailor to certain topics or certain areas of interest and let that guide my content building. So really, I've found that your your student aid event, your financial aid event will kind of end up falling into one of three categories. This is not the end all be all of every category possible, but let's say the three most popular. You might end up doing a document completion event. So the point is folks are going to come in ready to fill out their FAFSA or their CSS profile with you. Maybe you're in a computer lab, you're walking around ready to help people create that FSA or Federal Student Aid ID, that kind of thing. Document completion events are very different than general information events, and you want to decide beforehand which one you're doing, or the whole thing might go off the rails. That happened to me quite a bit when I started doing this, sort of in my early aid career. I'll show up and think, oh, if the students want to learn about filling out their FAFSA, I'll do that, and if they want to hear general information, I'll do that. Then you end up with some students wanting option A, some students wanting option B, and you can't continuously present while walking around the room addressing each individual student's concerns and needs. So say from the get-go, this is a FAFSA completion event. We're going to be doing FAFSA specific questions. So if you have general questions or maybe a unique aid situation, we have a different event we can do. We have a different set of resources we can direct you to and sort of handle it that way. Alrighty, just checking in on the chat. And also, you want to see if we want to do general information. So this is the FAFSA, this is an FSA ID, this is the CSS profile, here is how you apply for scholarships. If we want to do something like that, or if we want to do topic specific. Examples of topic specific content might be, this is how you fill out your state grant applications. This is how you proceed with professional judgment. For anybody who's not been part of one of my previous aid presentations, that was fun to say, previous aid presentations. Professional judgment is the process by which schools can say, all right, I see what your documentation says. I disagree. I'm going to award based on the information you've shown me through a professional judgment process. So maybe a parent has somebody going into college and they know that they just lost their job. One that I unfortunately have dealt with more than once is a parent who found out that they have an illness, a long-term illness that they were not anticipating in the college planning. So maybe we focus on professional judgment because we know we have folks in the room who are going to have a lot of atypical situations and need a lot of one-on-one care. So seeing what you need, asking that contact in advance what they think their group needs, and building from there. And of course, knowing your audience, knowing who's going to be in the seats. Knowing the topic is helpful, but how I present basic FAFSA filling out to a 17-year-old is very different than how I present that same information to a 53-year-old. It is not that one is getting more information and one is getting less information. It is kind of seeing what might be important to group A versus group B. Students might be a little more excited than parents, or vice versa. Maybe the student isn't super pumped about school, but the parent is over the moon. This was the dream. We got to where we wanted to go. So just knowing those little bits of information can be helpful. And if you don't know what your audience wants to know, if you don't know your audience well, down to, I don't know if I have a lot of people who are from communities who may not have a lot of virtual access, or people who are very well connected, people who are in communities where there's a lot of advantages and availability versus people who are not. If I don't know that, I'm going to ask my contact. I'm going to ask my person in the guidance office. I'm going to ask my person in the community group. And we want to find out which heading your audience falls under by kind of trying to group them into one of these four things. I'm going to take this opportunity to throw the PowerPoint document in the chat. We don't have a participation guide, but you are absolutely welcome. Happy to share this PowerPoint. And if you want to use these slides and share these, please feel free to do so. But let me just throw this in here. This is always the most fun part, is waiting for everything to load. And remembering what I named this. All right. And there we go. All right, so that should be up pretty shortly. But really, as I said, you want to find out which of these four audience types you are working with. Again, there are other types. These are the four most popular, or most common, I think is a better word to use. Future students. So when I say future students, that's anyone from a kindergartner who says, I want to go to school and I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up, all the way to students who are entering high school. They know college is on the horizon, so maybe we got to refocus and start the serious planning, but we don't know how to start. For those students, you absolutely want to be sure you are not overloading with information. The future students group, in my experience, tends to be the hardest group to hold their attention. Telling them things like, oh, you want to be sure you don't have a lot of debt to repay in 20 years, that doesn't mean a lot to them necessarily, or they understand it. They may not understand the gravity of what that means or what that would mean for them. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that they don't care or they're not paying attention. It's just not meeting them where they are. We're not seeing the world through their eyes to show them what they need to be doing. So for future students, that's when I bring in the fun. That's when I bring in the candy, the games, we're going to stand in a circle and play an improv game that has nothing to do with learning about aid, but it's going to get us silly. It's going to get us chit-chatting, and make sure that your event has lots of time for question and answer. So just as an example, for today, we have about an hour together. I try to do, for an hour-long event, about 45 minutes of talking and the rest of time for discussion, questions, hearing from you, and allowing some time for you to meet with each other. For these students, I try to do half and half. So half is activity and knowledge, the other half is time for questions. So what's a scholarship? How do I make sure I get really good grades and get ready to apply for a scholarship down the line? Things like that. I love presenting to future students. It's a lot of fun, and it's a group we definitely don't want to forget. I know sometimes we're thinking, okay, they got some time before they have to worry about college. Let's not focus too much there. But really, this is a great age to get them interested in their future, and give them some knowledge to build on from there. The next group of students would be those college-bound students, which are I feel what a lot of us work with or have at one point or other worked with. College-bound students are typically your 11th graders or your 12th graders, or they are people who have graduated and are coming back to school. So they know in the short term being next 2-3 years, they plan on being enrolled half-time, full-time in higher education. These students tend to be the ones who have the very specific questions. They want to know, how do I apply for various scholarships? Not how do I write an essay, but where do I go to apply for this scholarship? Where do I go online to complete my FAFSA? What is the number I call to reach out to my school to start this process? College-bound students, though they might not have the eye for detail for some of the information we're looking for, they are quite knowledgeable. They know what they're getting themselves into, and they come ready with questions. I mentioned the events in person during the day. I love doing in-person events with 11th graders and 12th graders because they have so many questions and they are so fascinated with what they don't know. So you've got college-bound kids, you bring the resources, you bring the information, and you bring the references. If you have parents or guardians in your audience, so you have maybe older siblings who are watching the students, we might have a mom and dad, or we have grandparents, community leaders who are looking over the students, anyone in that overarching umbrella would fall into the parents, guardians category. It has been my experience that folks in this category will ask the most loan-based questions. So not just what loans are available, although that will come with the territory a little bit, but what are the current interest rates? If I am applying for a Parent Plus loan through the federal government, how long until I go into repayment? How can I adjust my loan so that I'm not in repayment in that previously stated time frame? When I know I'm dealing with parents or guardians, that's when I do a little bit of my homework, brushing up on my old information that I might not have looked at in a while, going to the studentaid.gov website, and I'm going to throw that in the chat. I'm sure all of you have that, but just in case you don't, I am on studentaid.gov all the time, going through some of their frequently asked questions and news updates, just to be sure that I'm always on top of what's happening. And if I have a parent and guardian event, I'm doing my homework that day, and you should be as well. Be sure that you know what you know, that everything is updated. Especially if you, for example, are around the summertime where the federal interest rates might be changing, or if there has just been a change in interest rates for something else, that's a good time when you want to have a little portfolio maybe of some numbers that you can quote to people. One thing I want to mention, folks who are tied to a professional a higher education institution. For example, I used to work for Penn State. You know, I love Penn State. I talk about Penn State frequently. One rule of working with Penn State is I was not allowed and should not have been allowed to say, you should go to this lender, you should go to that lender. We're not allowed to recommend one lender over another. So though parents may have those questions, someone in my position would not have been able to answer them. So if you know you have that type of question, seek out somebody who perhaps is not bound by those rules, who is not unable to make specific recommendations. We talked about professional judgment a little while ago. If you have parents and guardians, even if it's a general information event, I can almost promise you, you will have someone coming to you with a professional judgment question. And sometimes they're basic and sometimes they are surprising. One thing that happened to me a few years ago is I had a parent who was experiencing addiction issues and was actually under the influence at my event. And they came up to me after the fact and said, you know, I really wanted to ask this question, but I knew I couldn't say it without you knowing that I'd been drinking. And I ended up having a half-hour-long conversation with this gentleman, got contact information for some other folks in his family, and was able to provide him some hard, firm resources that he could use when his student starts, to look into some of the professional judgment services that their school had. So no matter what, if you have parents and guardians, get ready for those questions, or be ready to direct parents to folks who can answer those questions. And if you have a combination audience, so you've reached out to your contact, you've asked them, do I have students? Do I have parents? They say, oh, you have both. Okay, can we break that up maybe? Can we try to make this 2 events? And the person you're talking to says, nah, we just want 1. We're just gonna have everybody get together and just, talk about aid. Okay, sounds good. So you've tried to know your audience, you've tried to prep your topic, and you can't really, you don't know who you're gonna have. The best rule I can offer in that case is prepare 5 topics and present 3 of them. This is where some of that improv comes into play. Combo audiences are absolutely doable and are wonderful learning experiences, but of course, if you can break it up a little bit more, do that, because you're going to be able to answer more questions that way versus with a combination parent, guardian, college-bound, younger students, everybody. I also want to mention in combination audiences, and in all audiences, be ready to publicly disagree. I do not mean, oh no, that's wrong, you can't be saying that to parents who say something that you disagree with. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, very often you might have someone very well-meaning from the guidance office, from the teachers group, from the community group, who says, here's my bit of aid advice, and you're listening to them thinking, oh, no, don't listen to them. You have to be able to step up and say, okay, thank you, Mr., Mrs., Ms. So-and-so, for sharing that. I disagree. I've found that our students are more successful with blah, 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 and redirect. I point that out because in combo audiences, sometimes you have competing presenters, other people who want to be an SME with you, and you got to be able to say thank you, but no thank you. All right, let me just check the chat. And again, of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. How can we increase attendance? We've talked about how we find out who we're talking to, how we build these events, and what we use to choose our topics. How do we get butts and seats, right? That's that's the verbiage. If you have all the information and 2 people show up, that doesn't help as many people as you would like to. I will be the first to say I have done single person events. One that comes to mind, I spent hours preparing a grad school event. So students who were graduating from undergrad, plan to go on to graduate school or some other form of education. I had multiple books. I had all these handouts. I had one guy show up. So sometimes you gotta use a little bit of, I don't want to say bribery, and I want to double underline that. I don't want to say bribery, but a little bit of incentive, maybe, for folks to show up to your event. Incentivize students, or let parents and guardians know that their students can be incentivized for showing up to your event. I would say, if you can avoid spending out-of-pocket money to get these cool goodies to get people into your seats, that would be for the best. So it would be best if your organization, your office, your group is providing some sort of budget, even if it's a teeny tiny little budget, to help get people into your events. Although I will say I've paid out of my own pocket to get cool stuff at my events. I'm sure nearly all of you have as well. I can see a few people nodding and smiling, and so we know that maybe the funding support may not be there, but if we can, and especially if that funding support is, we want to be assured that we have incentives for people coming to our events. So the best incentive is, I'm just going to be blunt, money. Access to micro scholarships, raffles for Amazon gift cards, coupons for local groups, anything like that. I love coupons. I love raffles. I mean, I'm not going to school at the moment, so I don't need to be looking at micro scholarships, but I will go somewhere if you tell me there's a raffle. And that's true of a lot of other people. So, just little things to get people in the door, get people to show up when they are on the fence, might otherwise not have come. Food is a wonderful incentive. Food that can be eaten there, pizza, sandwiches, free goodies, meal boxes to take later. If you were part of my body positivity event, it's always a good idea, or that it's always a good idea to leave some options for folks so we don't have to eat in front of others, or we don't have to make a big show of things. So food boxes, food coupons, vouchers, snacks that come in baggies that you can take later. It is my personal experience that the more candy I bring to my table, the more people will come and talk to me just so they can take some candy. So it works. And also school resources. If you can offer additional school resources to students who maybe otherwise would not have attended your event, that gets people in the door, and it also gets parents and guardians to nudge their future students in the door. So if you're working with a guidance office, can we then also hook up with a teacher who's offering extra credit? So maybe if you come to the 8 event, you get 5 points extra credit. You get a free week of parking, depending on how your school does parking, just as an example. Maybe there's a senior award, special recognition ceremony, micro scholarships reserved for students who are going above and beyond. Maybe make it so that students who are participating in your event are the first on the list for that. And you would work that out through the guidance office and the people who are touching base with you. Okay. We have a great comment here that I'm going to read out loud. Walmart, Target, and large grocery stores will donate gift cards to buy foods. And the person commenting has also gotten chain restaurants to donate food items, things like that. That's what I'm talking about. That's how to do it. So wonderful comment there about just ways to get some of these things to raffle off so you're not paying out of pocket. Gift cards will get people in the door. So yes, perfect. Oh, car wash. Awesome. I quite literally went through a car wash the other day. I'm located in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There was somebody raising money for a local group, and I got my car washed. So woohoo! So yeah, car washes are awesome. Anything that you can do to get people in the door. And to the point of the car wash, we all think of the drive-through car wash. One thing that you can do as a fundraising event, and this is me putting my fundraiser hat on, instead of doing the drive-through car wash, you set up your parking lot as a car wash so that when people are inside getting their information, they come back out and their car is all nice and squeaky and clean, and they don't have to worry about sitting there and all that stuff. So again, that's fantastic. See, this is why I want people talking in these chats, because we have great information to share with each other and great tips and tricks to use in the future. And now the car wash song is in my head, so that's also great. The car wash. So deciphering goals, really what that means is, who do you work for? So who do you work for and who do you serve? Who are you answering to? At the end of the day, is it your boss who's going to say, did you complete this mission? Did you not? Is it up to you to decide, did these students, did these parents hear what I had to say and did they take it to heart? Or is your goal to get butts in seats in a different way? Your goal is to get as many people in the front door as humanly possible. We have somebody who says that a student advocate or student advocacy trumps your boss. I agree. That's gotten me in trouble a couple times, but I agree. But the reason that I'm pointing that out is because that's gotten me in trouble a couple times. If you are working for the financial aid office, your goal, or at least in my experience, my goal is to make sure that students understand the aid system and that they are not taken advantage of by predatory lending, fake scholarships, identity theft, and that they leave not only with a college education, but without a mountain of debt that's going to prevent them from being the person they want to be. That has always been my goal in financial aid. And now that I'm working student advocacy, I can even be freer than that. My goal is to make sure that the students are happy that they reach their goals, and that families reach their goals as well. So again, it depends on kind of where you're coming from. Admissions, I want to make this very clear. This is in no way, shape, or form an anti-admissions comment. Having worked with many Office of Admissions, sometimes you do have to sit down and have that conversation where I know that my goal is what I said previously, but the person I'm working with, their goal, their boss is telling them, we need to meet a quota. We need to make sure students can come to our school. So sometimes the kind of conversation we have is, okay, I hear you. That is what you were hired to do, to make sure students can come to the school. But we also want to be sure that students stay at the school. Students who come for 2 weeks and then can't afford to pay their basic bills and then leave are not meeting your goal either. So we want to make it so that students are in the schools they should be in, that butts are in the appropriate seats, and that we understand that though our goals may be slightly competing, we are ultimately trying to help the student the best that we can. And of course, if you are I'll use the word privileged, like I have been, to be able to currently work in student advocacy without the ties to one of those offices, I can be a little more free in my statements. I can say, yes, I believe that advocacy should trump office mission. But again, as I said previously, that's gotten me into trouble. So I don't want to get you in trouble necessarily, or get you into trouble by surprise. So just a note to make. If you want to get into some good trouble, you go right ahead. That is not me advocating for trouble. I just want to be sure, in case Melissa is watching this, asking what is she saying. So let's talk about some helpful adjustments that can be made to our content and to our ways of thinking. You don't want to have the same presentation year to year. The first, let's say, 2 or 3 years that I did a standard aid event, so that I was doing general information events for high school students, I was using the exact same PowerPoint file that was made, I want to say, like 2008, 2009, with updated years. That's all that we would change from year to year. We would make it so instead of saying, 2020, 2021, it says 2021, 2022, or something to that effect, just as an example. And after one of my presentations, I had a parent come up to me and say, I could have found this out myself. I think I already knew most of this. And they weren't telling me this to make me feel bad. They were telling me because this was not what they needed to know. They were doing me a huge favor by letting me know, hey, this is all info that I could access on my own. This is info that a lot of us came with. So maybe change it up in the future. Maybe we don't have to learn about the background of the federal direct loan versus the Pell Grant versus this, that, and the other. And maybe we really just need to focus on the difference between scholarship, grant, loan, and leave the details to Q&A, things like that. It is okay to make adjustments. And one thing that I love to say is your audience, whether or not you want them to, is going to let you know how you did. I think that's a bonus, frankly. I would much rather know if I have egg on my face, right? I would much rather know, hey, that didn't work. We didn't get the message we were hoping to get. Here's how we would have preferred to hear this, or here's what we needed to know. There is absolutely no shame in taking that criticism to heart and swapping out your event for the next time. And sometimes in that same vein, people will come up to you and say, thank you so much. I was terrified about college, and now I'm not, or I'm still terrified, but slightly less terrified than when we started. So it's okay. So really don't beat yourself up if you get some criticism that you weren't ready for, that you disagree with. But what does work? What does work to improve your content? The best thing that I have found is standing out. So my name is Anne Grybowski. Nobody remembers my name. None of my students remember my name. And more people remember Grybowski than Anne. I get Emma, Amy, Erin, and these are all fantastic names. I love these names. These are not my name. So I realized they don't remember me, and maybe that's part of the problem. It's easy, I'll be blunt, it was easy to forget my content. It was easy to forget me. So one thing that I started to do, and just as a little example, not saying this is what you need to do, I started putting a very colorful streak in my hair, and you can kind of see the leftover, actually, it just looks gray now. But I had electric blue at one point, I had neon orange, and I became the lady with the color in her hair, and people would remember me for that. So I used that. I built off of that and built a character. Start showing up with weird shoelaces, showing up with huge bags of candy and sparkly bags to hand them out in. Again, just an example of what I chose to do. And in the picture here, one of my heroes, Juno Birch, love Juno Birch, an expert on standing out. You don't have to paint yourself head to toe as a new person, but maybe you show up with some music playing. Maybe you're known as the person who comes with some cool stickers and different things like that. Really, the options are endless. I know people who would show up in costume, and I love that. So if you want to show up in costume, you go right ahead. Whatever makes you memorable will help to impart your information. Folks who know me personally know I wear a lot of dark clothing. I wear a lot of black. I don't wear a lot of colorful things. When I was working with the Trio Training Academy, I, on more than one occasion, donned a pink flowy skirt and glitter wings and a tiara and played the financial aid fairy, which was great. That was so much fun. But that's just an example of something silly you can do, a character you can build that people will then associate with and want to talk to you. I still get people reaching out to the financial aid fairy, so throw on some wings, why not? You also want to show up with as many resources as you can. Firm actual resources, and by that I mean not just tips and tricks, although those are hugely helpful, but lists of websites that currently have scholarships available, lists of websites that break down lenders, private lending, FAFSA information, anything like that. The federal government has a slew of actual paper documents that you can order through studentaid.gov, so you can just get a bunch of pamphlets to hand out that has the information already there in colorful format for you. So the more information you can show up with in your bag, in your folder, in your what have you, the better. And if you can, this is not a requirement, and I will say I know that there are some dangers that come with this, but set up lines of future communication. I'm one of those people who does let me put that website back in the chat here, studentaid.gov. I'm one of those people who is the drive home person. I spend so much time in deep thought behind the wheel of my car. I think of good questions then. And sometimes I think of things that I'm like, oh, I really wish I would have asked that, but I forgot. My opportunity's gone. And so because I'm like that, I assume parents, students are like that as well. So I try to leave an open line of communication. If I'm not comfortable sharing my email with people, I will share how they can reach out to the school of their choice, the contact person within their high school or community group, what have you. At the end of this presentation, I'll share my email with all of you. So if you have questions tomorrow, the next day, or a year from now, you can reach out to me. And I think that that is hugely beneficial. I will also say that this has come back to bite me. Telling a little bit of a story with the names and details change. I had a parent once spitefully, I don't want to say dox me. They did not share my personal location or anything like that, but shared my personal email en masse. And that turned out to be really messy because I had literal, I don't know if I want to say hundreds, dozens of long emails that I couldn't answer in a timely fashion, then were all very angry with me. So there is a downside to sharing your email. So I don't want to say you must do that. I think it's a good idea, but if you're uncomfortable, share one of the other resources I mentioned. Alrighty. What does not work? A one-size-fits-all approach. And this just goes with what I was mentioning earlier. If you try to do a general information at the same time as a FAFSA completion event, you're going to be quite literally running from point A to point B, and it's a mess. Don't try to do it. Don't recite information. Like I said, I had someone come up to me and say, "Hey, Anne, this was great. I could have read studentaid.gov on my own." And granted, this was a few years ago, but they were right. I was reciting information that was easily found online. I didn't need to be doing that. Folks can do that on their own. It's 2023. Folks know how to get on the website and find the basic information. What they need you to do is decipher that information or reframe it, repackage it in a more digestible way for them. And the big thing that doesn't work, and if you only take one or two things away from today, please make this one of those items. Scare tactics do not work. I know it's tempting to say, hey, if you don't pay attention, you're going to have this mountain of debt. Hey, if you don't pay attention, you're going to end up at a school that is not your top choice. Yeah, but let me tell you why that doesn't work. One of the reasons why this doesn't work is because students and parents are already stressed as it is. They're already scared. They don't need you to scare them. They already have a bunch of things to worry about, and especially Gen Z students. I'm a millennial. The way that I thought and took in information about the future is very different than high school students and junior high students today are. So I'm going to play a little bit of this video to wrap us up, and then I do want to be cognizant of the time. We are coming up on 11, so I do understand if you need to leave. But I'm going to play a little bit of this video to show you what students today are dealing with, and why scaring them with aid information doesn't work. Please let me know if you cannot hear this.
I'm all over the place. There is never a dull moment in my life. I live in a time of a persistent influx of information and pressure. There are never any extra moments in life to just be still. I'm 15 years old, still in high school, yet I already feel like I'm working around the clock for a future I can never guarantee. I have approximately 7 hours of school a day, about 10 if you count after school, 13 if you consider homework. I have anywhere from 9 to 15 hours of volunteer work every month and countless hours of chosen extracurriculars. What my parents want for me is to be happy. They just want me to be happy. In reality, I have too much to do. I'm always stressed about something. I'm worried about managing everything. Being a well-rounded teen in today's technological age is overwhelming. Society tells us over and over again that as teens, we need to prepare for the future. Prepare for college, prepare to get a job, prepare for a family, prepare for any possible emergency in life. I'm a part of Generation Z. We have this mentality of, I want to be special and unique, just like everyone else. I was told I can be anything I want to be if I work hard. The difficult part is that you can be anything has come to mean you should do everything. I'm going to share with you the struggles that we as Gen Z face dealing with technology, the pressure to be well-rounded, and the effects on our mental well-beings. Gen Z is expected to understand how to navigate technology. There's an overwhelming assumption of being available for everyone all the time. I feel neurotic just waiting for a response from my friends about a homework assignment due the next day. Gen Z has a learning curve that is incredibly unforgiving. There's a dark side of technology when mistakes are made. Public shaming takes to mob mentality on social media and what is called cancel culture. This is the idea of people dropping celebrities. Status is stripped when massive amounts of people unfollow someone for doing something that is considered controversial or bad. We can't automatically filter out the harmful parts of technology. There is a pressure to master the art of avoiding risk and hazards. We are warned of the dangers that lurk around every corner of the internet: catfishing, identity theft, and stalking, and cyberbullying, but we don't know what to do with those warnings. We don't have enough life experience or advice to be wise about our choices that can have long-term consequences. Gen Z has no effective way of disconnecting from constant media. Despite the backlash of technology, we have an intense attachment to it. Recently, my school went on lockdown, and I was in dance class, and we aren't allowed to have our phones. But when those drills went off, everyone was anxious about, one, the possible emergency, and the fact that they couldn't get a hold of their loved ones immediately. Gen Z is so enveloped in social media that there is a crushing pressure to be the perfect teen. Gen Z is groomed to be well-rounded teens. We have to make decisions from constant choices, and we are always working for the future. We have so many options for colleges, internships, majors, and schoolwork. Everything is being labeled as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we simply can't miss out on. There is a pressure for a well-rounded teen to be good at everything. I suck at grammar and mental math, but in order for me to get those A's on my transcript, I need to have those skills mastered. Just like how people learn in different ways, we are all good at different things. There is this overwhelming pressure to fill up our schedules to meet other people's expectations. We need to be more competitive well-rounded teens. We want to load up our job applications with impressive achievements. We can't just be smart. We have to be athletic and a leader and volunteer in the community. We have to make constant decisions from having so many possibilities. My schedule is so cramped from everything that I choose to do, yet I still look at other opportunities and try and see if there's a way I can fit them in with everything else. There's this little voice in the back of my mind saying that if I'm not doing something at that moment, then I am useless and wasting time. That crushing pressure to be the perfect teenager is impacting our mental well-beings. Gen Z's mental wellness is being challenged. The stress levels that teenagers face are out of control. I feel like I could implode from all of it, studying for 3 tests at a time, working on my personal projects every chance that I get, volunteering and making time for friends and family. It's got me pulling in all sorts of different directions. There is a sense of escalated crime.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and stop it there, but let me just put the link to this in the chat if you want to watch the full video. That's 2 seconds here. Hopefully that links to the correct video. Cool. I always worry when I link something because I do keep my clipboard clear, but there's always the possibility that someone's going to end up with a video about how to make X recipe. So if I ever do that, you know that was accidental. But as Emily really eloquently showed us, we don't need to add more fear to students right now. They have enough. They know the student debt crisis. They know what they're looking at. They watch the news, they watch YouTube, they're on their phones, they're aware. So it's not necessarily oh, you have rose-colored glasses on, you don't know what's coming. It's that they know what's coming, and it all kind of seems like doom and gloom. And when you have too much doom and gloom, you give up. It's like, well, if it's all not going well, why do I try? And that is the danger of trying to use scare tactics to teach about financial aid. Listen to me or you'll have too much debt. Pay attention to this or you won't remember where to sign your MPN. We don't want to do that. We want to guide and not scare. One other thing I want to mention, if you look at the comments from that video on YouTube, one of the top comments is from a student who is in that age group who says, this is really helpful. And I completely agree. I also realize I watched this on 1.5 speed because I want to watch it quickly so I can get back to my homework. So a nod to what they're dealing with, right? Nope. There we go. And that brings us to the end of our discussion today. Again, I wanted to share my contact information so you can reach out to me with any questions you have in the future. And also let me know if you would like something a little more tailored, maybe learning a little bit more the step-by-step of building an event, or how we decide how to have those cold calls. Any questions you have, I am happy to answer. But we do have, well, we are actually past 11. And again, I know that some of you might have stuff to be at right away. So no pressure if you need to go ahead and log off, but please feel free to unmute, ask questions, make comments, whatever you would like to do. You are very welcome. Thank you all for coming, by the way. I really enjoy these events. I enjoy having an opportunity to talk with people who also genuinely care about students and their families. So this is awesome. Thank you. And of course, in addition to contacting me, if you want to see the interesting events we have coming up with ASAOE, we have a few events in the next couple weeks. I will be at them, even if I'm just watching them, because I think they're very interesting. We also have a YouTube channel that I have linked there. Some of our content is posted on YouTube. Videos that are not posted on YouTube are typically available on the ASAOE website once we are able to clean them up a little bit and make them available for you. So once again, I'll check to see if we have any questions. All right, looking pretty good. All right, it looks like I will go ahead and come on now. If you're wondering why I keep pausing, I lost my mouse at about, moment 10 of this. So my mouse can click on things, but I cannot see what it's doing. Alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and thank you. Use some cheese to find the mouse. That is awesome advice. I love it. All right. Thank you all so much, everybody. Have a fantastic day. I hope to hear from you in the future. And I hope you have a good rest of your week.